I'd like to go ahead and get started with a brief check-in, just to have a sense of who's here, and all of us have a sense of who we are, where we're from. So as I call on you to unmute, if you just say who you are and where you are, and why you are, if in one sentence, to explain why you're here in this forum, what's brought you here. And there will be an opportunity for you, if you have questions, to ask those questions. So Candy, you want to go ahead and check in?
I'm Candy Brandt from Spokane. I'm interested in the effects or possibilities of medical cannabis for the relief of pain, particularly when you get past the point where regular medicine cannot treat.
All right.
Or hasn't been able to.
Okay, that's a very popular reason to pursue medical cannabis as an alternative to conventional medicine. Okay, next, Steve.
I'm Steve Colliday. I'm in Lee Summit, Missouri right now, and I'm doing interim work at Unity Ministries. I've been in Albany since March and came back here at the end of August to finish remotely, since we're now being able to do live streaming on Sundays on Zoom. And I'm interested in medical marijuana to help me with the stress. It's been, as for a lot of folks, for me too, really stressful, and in some good ways as well as challenging ways recently. And also I want to be able to support with some knowledge folks in ministry that are looking for another alternative, and they've raised medical marijuana, and so I'd like to be up to speed on that. So thanks, Gary.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Beth, go ahead, unmute.
Yes, hi, I'm Beth Gould from Mount Vernon, Washington, and I'm interested in cannabis for myself as a sleep solution and pain management solution. And for the folks I work with, I'd just like to be a bit more knowledgeable about it.
All right.
Hi, I'm Joan Pete. I'm from the Villages, Florida. And as a nurse, I'm really interested in this. I'm also interested for pain relief.
My name is Carol Waldenberg, and I'm interested in this for helping my mom with sleep, pain, and then my profession is wellness. So it's just a piece of the puzzle of wellness. So appreciate you, Gary.
All right, thanks, Carol. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Dotson. I'm currently living in Colorado. And I have been using cannabis for a while with my mom for pain, but she recently was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I'm looking to educate myself and her more so that she can use this to help cure or heal her breast cancer. So thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks, Sharon. All right, Monica.
Yep, my name's Monica. I'm in the Villages, Florida. Joan and I are friends. And I have chronic pain and I have sleep apnea, although I won't use a device, and as well as anxiety. So I'm with Candy and Steve all the way, and wanting to learn more and to be able to manage my life better.
All right, thanks. All right, Alan, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alan Bucas, and I am in Rhode Island. I'm coming to you from Rhode Island. And my purpose in being here today is really about connecting with others who are consciously using cannabis. I was in the industry a little bit in Colorado for a few years, in the cannabis industry. And so cannabis I'm an advocate, and it has healed me on many levels. And so I'm here to just connect with others who are open and consciously consuming.
Awesome. Glad they're here, Alan. Appreciate it. Judy, you want to go next?
Yes.
There you go.
And I'm interested as a retired pharmacist and as a licensed teacher in Unity, and for personal use for pain. And I live in a retirement community, and a lot of people have a lot of questions who know my background. And it's one of those things that I have watched over the years, and I welcome Gary getting more open and willing to share.
What state are you in, Judy?
I'm in Redmond, Washington.
Okay, all right, thanks. All right, let's see. It's your turn. There you go, Donald. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Gary.
Hi.
I'm with Unity Church of Portland. And so we've done some things with Gary in the past. And so I look forward to hearing about it, what he's done. And I was impressed with those x-rays you sent with your email. And so I just wanted to learn some more about this for some of our elder people in the church.
All right, thanks, Donald. And Jill, you're next.
Hi, I'm Jill Clements. I'm from Scottsdale, Arizona, and my husband has recently been diagnosed with a very large lung tumor. He's scheduled for surgery on the 22nd to have it removed, but they're suggesting chemo and such as follow-up, and we're looking for alternatives for that. And this sounds like an opportunity for that, perhaps.
All right, thanks, Jill. So let me just now say that, first of all, anything that I share, I want to just let it be clear that I'm not prescribing, I'm not advising you to do something with respect to your specific illness or condition or question. I'm mostly wanting to share resources and my experience and what I've learned in the last 4.5, 5 years that I've had to educate myself with regard to managing my own cancer and my own remission. I'm still dosing myself and taking a variety of different cannabis products for both health as well as maintenance of my health. So as a disclaimer, therefore, then we can talk about things, and you can understand that anything that I say is not a prescription, but rather just information that illumines your path. Can you all agree that that's how you're going to receive all of this? Thank you. All right, I'm wanting to now share my screen, and I'm wanting to share a resource that one of the things that happened to me, I'll go ahead and start my story now. It'll be kind of unfolding throughout our conversation. So I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic melanoma, a rare form of internal skin cancer, in February 16th, 2016. So we were here in the church for 9 months or 10 months, and I got diagnosed with cancer. Interestingly, Reverend David McClure, who's the minister that preceded Jane and myself, was leaving ministry because he was diagnosed with the very same cancer, except it was in his brain. And he was considered terminal and just told to pack things up and prepare for his next journey. And he was lucky to have been able to got into an experimental program that pioneered Keytruda. As many of you know, Keytruda is a immunotherapy. It's not a chemotherapy. It's not in that category. And it seeks to help boost the immune system to fight off the cancer. And it's effective in between 20 and 35% of the people, at least, to help mitigate tumor growth. However, there are lots of side effects, and not everybody is helped. And so when I was diagnosed with my cancer, I was told that there wasn't really anything for me other than what was being experimentally considered in Seattle. And so I had asked immediately, because I have had experience with the recreational side of cannabis. That was something that I was interested in learning about. And so I applied for a medical card in which I was certified to be able to go to a dispensary as well as grow my own plants if that was my choice. So I immediately after my diagnosis began my exploration. I had no information. I didn't know where to start other than I knew a pot store. And so I walked into the pot store and I asked the the young gal, you know, who was 25 years old, maybe at the most, you know, do you have anything for cancer? That's my question. I walked in with that question, and she looked at me, she laughed, and she said, you know, all this, you know, and so I said, well, is CBD good? And okay, so give me some CBD. So I didn't know if that would really matter, just to kind of smoke CBD. I mean, what's up with that? So finally, the young gal who was trying to help me wrote on a sticky note the 3 letters RSO, and she asked that I Google that, and so I did, and I found out that Rick Simpson, who was a Canadian, had developed a protocol which consisted of high doses of um, uh, full extract cannabis oil or FICO oil, um, and he cured his own melanoma. And so I went to a dispensary, and I asked them about that, and oh yes, we have RSO. And I began to just take it. And of course there's a dosing protocol, because this stuff at the time is pure THC, 90% THC. And so minute amount, it's sold in 1 gram syringes, and a minute amount is significant enough to get a person just really wasted. So the average person can become psychoactivated by THC at 10 milligrams dose. And so I had to reach 1,000 milligram dose in order to have achieved what Rick Simpson had prescribed as been his method. And I was able to acclimate myself with a great effort, and thanks to Jane being able to really support me, because heavy doses of THC produces almost a catatonic state. And so I was having to dose 3 times a day to try to achieve a gram intake of the oil, and eventually did. And I was also asked by my doctor, my oncologist, to begin, well, he sent me to Seattle, and I was decided not to go on with their experimental treatment, because it would require me taking 7 days of chemo in order to nuke my immune system, and then they would insert T cells after having made some from extracting one of my tumors. Anyway, I didn't do that, but I noticed that after about 45 days of being able to really take the full gram a day and more, my tumors were beginning to shrink. And my oncologist, while I didn't believe it, I began to show him pictures. And so he sort of said, oh, well, okay. But anyway, by the time I had my second PET scan, which was 3 months later, I had my first one on March 1st, my second one on June 1st, there was no tumors in my body. And my oncologist could not believe it. And he refused to write into my medical record any indication that cannabis was responsible for this. And this was prior to completing the Keytruda protocol, which is typically 6 infusions separated by 3 weeks. And I had 2 infusions, and all my tumors were gone. So I knew that it wasn't the Keytruda, but maybe the cannabis enhanced the Keytruda's capacity to improve its function. But suffice to say, I haven't been on any kind of medication or aftercare from the medical, traditional medicine. And I haven't been back for any kind of scans or things like that since the pandemic. So I consider myself in complete remission, and have since, in the course of my illness, have sought to educate myself. So the first thing that I learned about after I had completely been in remission, and then I began to have questions from people in my congregation, is I discovered United Patients Group. And so I'm going to share this right now for you, this website. And it's unitedpatientsgroup.com. And so had I known that this was available, or actually it probably wasn't available till after I discovered it. But this man that you see here, his name is John, and he started this organization because his father-in-law had cancer and was healed with medical cannabis. However, since the inception of this website and the services that I'll describe, he has since lost his wife to pancreatic cancer, where none of the cannabis treatments were able to really help her. So this is not a kind of miracle drug. It is something that really has a tremendous healing potential, but it's not something that is necessarily a silver bullet for everything. But the reason why I'm wanting to point this out is because everyone that I coach, that I have to suggest that you need to go to this website and seek out a consultation. So right down here is schedule a consultation, and you can click on this, and you can go to a portion of this website where you can actually request to speak to a medical doctor, probably somebody in California or Colorado, who is actively has a practice in dealing with various conditions, including all the things that you've mentioned. And in the consultation, which is typically an hour, which would be on Zoom and it'd be recorded, the doctor would be able to ask the patient, or if it's a family member, ask the family member about the patient, all the questions that are necessary for a doctor to be able to advise, because there are interaction issues with high doses of THC that need to be taken into consideration. And so that's, and what's been discovered in recent years is that each individual's personal experience with medical cannabis is so unique. There is never ever one a way in which, okay, it worked for this person, so it should work for you too. It doesn't work that way. Anything that works for you is something that works for you, in the sense that because each of us have what scientists have recently learned in the last 2 decades, we have an endocannabinoid system. In other words, we have an internal system of that uses our own body's capacity to create cannabinoids that perform health functions of our own immune function, as well as the function of our organs. And so when the endocannabinoid system is out of balance, which it routinely is through stress, through lack of sleep, through toxins, through allergies, through microbes, there is a need for us to supplement that system if we are to attain some kind of balance. And when that system goes into imbalance because of those things that I mentioned, stress and so on and so forth, then that's when the correct application of medical cannabis can be almost miraculous, because it works with and restores the endocannabinoid system. In addition to that, THC in particular has cancer-killing properties that, when balanced by and with other cannabinoids such as CBD and terpenes and other things like that we'll talk about, or you can learn about. It's about dialing in what is an appropriate protocol for each individual, regardless of what the ailment is. A rule of thumb is low and slow. Start out low and go slow. And then you work up to trying to dial in what seems to work for you. And all the conditions that you've mentioned, there are different approaches. And so it requires a medical expert that can really coach you into starting at a place and then giving you a protocol that you can work with to achieve the desired results. In addition to that website, there's a blog, and if you subscribe and become a member, you'll routinely receive emails that share the latest blog. And the blog has videos, and I've watched probably hundreds of videos in the last 5 years, and they're interviews with medical doctors talking about various conditions and what they've done to support people in their effort to achieve maximum health. And it covers a broad range of topics, so you can just scroll down and find something that you're interested in, and learn about what these doctors are doing with a condition that you might be interested in. In addition to that, the website does sell CBD products because CBD is now, because it's not considered Schedule 1, because it doesn't have sufficient THC, under 0.3%. However, all CBD products are not equal, and so you'd want to, if you are advised to purchase a CBD product, you'd want to purchase it from a dispensary or from like this website, which is the highest quality that's available. In addition to that website, I'm wanting to share another resource. So this book by Bonnie Goldstein is awesome, and it's written in such a way that explains why cannabis works. But anyway, I would recommend, if you're really interested in really understanding the various ways in which you could be supported in your own effort to maintain optimal health, you need to educate yourself, because there's no amount of, even a consultation won't necessarily give you everything that you need. You need to understand why it works and what you need to do to really dial it in. And this resource is very good. So in addition to looking at medical cannabis, it typically lands upon people understanding that medical cannabis involves an interaction with our endocannabinoid system, the part of our body that has the receptors for the various cannabinoids. And the reason why we have receptors is because Mother Nature intended us to have these compounds to help us navigate the stresses of our world. So part of learning about and understanding the application of medical cannabis is to know something about the cannabinoids that have medicinal properties. So the most popular one is THC, and it is what is the molecule that provides the psychoactivity at certain levels. And so typically 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams a person could be psychoactivated. And so the latest research shows that many of the health benefits associated with the use of medical cannabis, while is benefited by THC as a part of the protocol, it's not necessarily needed for there to be high doses of THC for there to be significant medical benefit in the areas of stress reduction, sleep, anxiety, and in some respects, pain. There's a way of dosing that enables you to work with your lifestyle. I managed doing my entire protocol while still not missing a Sunday or a board meeting or anything else like that. I did become psychoactivated at a couple of board meetings, so I gotta tell you, it was but anyway, they all knew what I was doing, so it was fun for them to kind of tease me. Anyway, so what I've had to do is I've had to learn about THC and its effects, as well as its interactions with other drugs that need to be taken into consideration, and then also CBD. And I've in the last 5 years, I've had a growing appreciation for CBD as it partners with THC, and now there's also new research and studies that reveal that the acid molecules of THC and CBD have extraordinary benefits. So I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But the next thing I just want to say is that when you consider medical cannabis, you also need to consider all the ways in which it's administered. In other words, you can ingest something, you can smoke something, you can vape something, you can eat something, you can spray something, you can rub something, you can stick stuff up your butt if you needed to, but that doesn't show it works that much. Anyway, the point is that any delivery system is going to also need to be a part of the consideration. So in the cannabis plant, marijuana plant, there are up to 140 different cannabinoids. The number changes as more research is done. But suffice to say that down below where it says THC and CBD, and then in the middle is decarboxylation, is an oxidation process that removes the carboxyl group, the molecule there, and it transitions from the acid molecule into the CBD or the THC. And that happens when you burn it or when you heat it. And so if you don't heat raw cannabis, then the material that is there in the cannabinoid state is the acid version of it. And what they've now discovered is that the acid version of THC and CBD, if that's ingested, it can't be smoked, it has to be ingested, then those have extraordinary benefits as well. Jane and I, we both take raw cannabis every day, and as a part of a supplement, because there's no psychoactivity, there's no negative, there's no side effects at all, and there's all these super health benefits. And so I watched the video of an interview with a doctor in California. And he was talking about how he uses the acid molecules in conjunction with both CBD and THC to treat his patients. In other words, a starting place to treat all the conditions that we've talked about, let's say. And so this is not to say that this is a kind of blanket prescription, but it is to say that most people, this is a low enough kind of prescription that most people would be greatly benefited by it in most respects. So let me just say that if we look at these four molecules, and as this doctor explained, if you would ingest 30 milligrams of each of these four cannabinoids every day, your immune function and the benefits of these cannabinoids would provide not only a mitigation to any disease process that is unfolding, in other words, a starting place to begin to treat illness, as well as a way in which you can deal with balancing the nervous system and getting some relief with respect to the common ailments associated with stress and anxiety and sleep deprivation. So let me just say that 30 milligrams of any of these cannabinoids, if you spread it over the day, that's 10 milligrams 3 times a day. And so there's no issue with the THC, there's no issue with ingesting 3 times a day 10 milligrams of THCA or CBDA or CBD. The only issue is the THC. And so that would be something that would have to be worked in. You'd have to acclimate and develop a tolerance to take that much THC in one day without some acclimation. So basically what many of these doctors do is that they start people on these 4 cannabinoids. And when it comes to the THC, they titrate to bring up a person's tolerance. So for instance, they may take a tincture, let's say a 5-to-1 tincture that has, let's say 2.5 milligrams of THC in it. They would use that 3 times a day, let's say, and it's well below the psychoactivity, and they're getting 7.5 milligrams right there. That's not 30 yet, but then they begin to have the person double up on the evening dose. So they take the tincture, and now they're getting 5 milligrams of THC in the evening, and because the morning and the afternoon tincture, now they're getting 10 milligrams for that day, but they're still not psychoactivated. And then the process continues where the next, after they build a tolerance there, then the next stage of that is then they take 2 5-to-1 droppers in the morning, in the afternoon, and 3 in the evening, and then 4 in the evening. And eventually they acclimate to being able to tolerate the 30 milligrams of THC a day. All the while, they're also taking 30 milligrams of CBD, CBDA, and THCA. So so now, so this is something that Jane and I have been doing. We started out 30 milligrams of raw bud is about is about 6 capsules of double-aught capsules filled with bud that's a 1-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC, but it's all the acid molecule because it's raw bud. So I've created a video that explains how this whole process of bringing all these cannabinoids together works and how to make the capsules out of raw bud. I'm also going to create another video on another way in which you can accomplish getting the THCA and CBDA, but not using bud. That's kind of expensive. So I find that I have to go out and locate the CBD, raw CBD, and I have to locate, well, THC is easy, and then I have to make it. So I have to get an ounce of each and crush it all up and put it all in the capsules. And then Jane and I take it every day. Well, that's quite expensive. So I have found another way to do the very same thing at a third of the cost and of the effort. And it's using what's called isolates. It's CBDA and THCA in crystallate form. You can't see anything other than this is a kind of packaging for this particular brand. So don't get focused on the brand. I'm wanting to illustrate that they have now been able to extract the acid molecules directly from the whole plant and create it in a crystallized form. And then the crystals can be crushed using mortar and pestle to a fine particles and then mixed together. So you have a gram of THCA, a gram of CBDA, and if you divide, because you need 30 milligrams of each of those cannabinoids, you would want to put 60 milligrams of the combined crushed material into each little capsule. And then you'd have to use a very microgram scale to be able to measure out in each capsule 60 milligrams of material. And you make those into capsules, and you just take one a day instead of 2 capsules 3 times a day. And so that gives you all the acid molecules that are needed for that formula of the 4 cannabinoids. To get the CBD, I just take a 20-to-1 tincture, and I talk about that in the video. So typically a 20-to-1 tincture has about 6.5 milligrams of CBD to less than 2 of THC. It's really low. So you're not getting any real THC benefit from doing the high CBD tincture, but you can get 2 dropperfuls 3 times a day. That'll give you 30 milligrams of CBD. So now last thing I'm going to say before we open it up to questions is that the other big thing that I have heard all these doctors talk about, they have a kind of approach to dealing with a person's symptoms. So they may say, I've got anxiety, I got stress, I got all this stuff, I've got cancer. The first thing they're going to want to make sure that you're doing, and that is getting 8 hours sleep. And so the first place they start is your sleep. And until you sleep 8 hours, your parasympathetic nervous system doesn't kick in. And that's where the rest and digest and the immune function starts back up, is when that part of our nervous system is working. And so before you try to treat your stress or your pain, let's get you to sleep. Let's make sure you can have a good restful night's sleep, because that's going to go a long ways to restore your well-being. And so far as dealing with sleep, there's a number of different approaches to it. As I mentioned, a couple puffs of using a vape pen, not smoking. You really, at our age, we want to avoid combusting the raw plant, and instead use a device like this, a battery operated. It's a herb vaporizer. You put the herb inside a little chamber, and it heats it up to a specific temperature without combusting. the plant material, but rather releasing the cannabinoids. So THC carboxylizes at 250 degrees, and CBD is about 380 degrees. So there are other products like CBD and melatonin, which is available from the United Patients Group website. So if you have sleep issues, then that's one thing that you can research. And because the United Patients Group is all about people using the right product for the right condition, and all this is highly researched by those cannabis doctors that are supporting the effort to educate people, to help people. The formulations that they have are things that you could try and have some confidence in their ability to support you. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, well, one more thing, two more things, and that is pain. Pain management requires typically sufficient levels of THC that can mitigate some of the discomfort. However, studies have shown now that a lot of pain is caused by inflammation and nerve issues. And so using the acid molecules is one of the quickest ways to really mitigate those sources of pain. If you have migraines, or if you have other pain, arthritic pain, anything that's affected by inflammation will be helped by the acid molecules, and otherwise, so pain can be treated, but I'm not a pain specialist. I don't know. I mean, I treat my own pain, but if you have a specific chronic condition, then you should speak to one of those doctors. And then finally, cancer. Different cancers will require a different approach. Breast cancer, depending upon the type of breast cancer it is, a different approach would be recommended, and I'm not able to even speak to that. But for general purposes, most cancers are affected by THC and CBD. So your consultant or your doctor can support you in how to address cancer and using cannabis, recognizing that you may or may not be in a state that enables you to have the full benefit of all the products that are available, or you may or may not be in a position to tolerate well the psychoactivity. In patients that tolerate well the psychoactivity, then the arena is wide open for you to really explore. All right, I think I've covered just about all the material that I felt important to cover, and so I will gladly now take your comments or questions as you have them.
First of all, thank you. It's very, very helpful. Can you tell me, for resourcing, do you buy all your stuff off of that resource that you gave us earlier, or is there somewhere local that you purchase your stuff?
Okay, good question. So I've only now recently just ordered something off that website, but no, the answer is that they don't have any real. All they're dealing with is CBD, and then adding various terpenes to enhance the benefit of it. So you have to go to, in Washington State, a pot store, and because there's no dispensaries anymore, it's just all combined. You have to have a sense of what you're looking for, because while many of the pot stores have people who have been certified by the state as a medical consultant, only can consult with respect to describing what the products do. In other words, okay, this gets you high, this makes you relax. They're not really going to be able to approach the same level of either identifying a starting place or a way of dialing things in. You really need to have someone coach you, and shopping is another challenge. I have, a number of times with people in our church, have gone to the store with them and show them how to ask questions and how to look at the labels and read the documentation associated with what they're buying and have some consideration for what they're getting into. And it's like being a deer in the headlights. You kind of walk into the store and you just get overwhelmed and overstimulated because there's so much. There's hundreds of variations of products that mostly serve the recreational clients. However, the medical stuff that is really focused on, providing the quality and preciseness of and consistency of the product, those are things that you have to shop around and actually find and learn about. So it's good to have someone that has knowledge that you can go with and learn about. And then after a while, after you know what you're after, then the next thing is to shop in different stores to find similar products at affordable prices, because this is not inexpensive.
My question is, are you aware of any studies or experts in the use of cannabis in mental health issues?
Well, yes, I don't know of anybody, but I know that they cover those things. So you would go to that website and you can come and scroll through the blogs, and you might find a couple of videos on dementia, on depression, on other kinds of memory issues, all different kinds of mental health issues. As a matter of fact, there's one doctor who recently has written a book all about the brain and mental issues in medical cannabis. So there are resources.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Steve?
Gary, knowing myself, if I were motivated by a diagnosis myself of cancer, for example, I think I might be able to do this. But right now, to do even approaching what you have been doing for me is really daunting. So one of the questions I had, particularly when you were talking about the crystallized THCA and CBDA, I was thinking, well, there's not a market for that yet, a legal one. Somewhere at some point there will be very expensive, I imagine, and probably not yet covered by healthcare or that kind of stuff. But do you see anything on the horizon or anything that's happening in that to save us those? I mean, one of the things I sense is that for people to have to do this, you are one of the more obviously talented persons on the planet in so many ways. And so what you're doing is again, pioneering. Everything you do in life is like pioneering, Gary. So thank you. I will say thank you. And you're a role model in that regard. And for those of us that are maybe emerging in that, maybe next lifetime for me. Anyway, what?
So it's a challenge where you live. And so what happens is that there are people who, get these consultations who are in states that aren't legal at all. They don't have anything.
Right.
And so some people are so desperate that they have to move to a state that's legal and begin their treatment there. So I mean, if it wasn't, I mean, we moved from Belize Summit to Spokane, Washington, and then I got sick. And I got sick in a place that had everything I needed. But if I got sick in Missouri, I would be dead by now. And so that's a conundrum. So what's happening is that, I mean, these things that I've shown you, you can't buy online because they can be activated. You can smoke these crystals too, as well as ingest it. And so if you smoke it, it's going to, the THC on this is 90% THC in this.
Oh.
And so it's just really going to mess you up. So you won't be able to get this product in your state. You would have to drive to Colorado and buy it and then be illegally transporting it back to your home.
Right.
And people do that.
Sure.
People have friends who send stuff to their friends in states that don't allow it. And that's how a lot of them get by. Yeah, but it's hard that way because what a friend uses and what you need might not necessarily be the right thing. Right. Okay, so Donald wanted to know about CBD oil and THC oil. So let us just say that there are extracts where those cannabinoids are extracted out of the plant. And so there is like an RSO product that is high CBD. as well as RSO that's high THC, which is the norm, as opposed to CBD as being in an oil is the exception, not the norm. So you wouldn't necessarily want, unless you were prescribed by a medical physician, ultra high doses of CBD. You can get ultra high doses of CBD off of the website, the United Patients Group, and it's grown from a drug quality hemp product. So there's two different kinds of hemps. One is the industrial hemp that's high fiber, and another is the hemp that is actually a marijuana plant with such a low THC, it qualifies as being a non-Schedule 1 drug. In other words, they often call it hemp, but it's really the whole plant that's been that has evolved, and that's what you're really wanting if you can. Most of the stuff that's sold online is the industrial hemp that is, who knows what you're getting. Monica, you had a question? Go ahead.
So here in Florida, they just legalized gummies, gummy bears and stuff. Yeah, what is that?
Okay, that's that's amazingly popular.
Yeah, and we're out of stock in Florida. You can't get them now. So it's like, what?
Yeah, so gummies are fine if because you're going to have a consistent dose. However, it's not necessarily a medical approach. The gummies are sold to primarily, younger people who want a convenient, inconspicuous way to be activated. So, Alan, I was wanting to ask you, I know that you have been involved in helping support people in their journey. You want to share a little bit about your experience in the context of some of the things that I've shared?
Oh, well, yeah. So, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Gary, for, putting this together. And it actually prompted me to say, you know what, I want to have these conversations with people, to me, conscious cannabis consumption. And from my perspective, cannabis is all about wellness. It's all medical. From my perspective. So I am the senior minister of a Center for Spiritual Living here in Rhode Island, and after coming off of a sabbatical of 3 years in Colorado, where I was a grower and caregiver, and cannabis played a very big part in some physical, but also very spiritual and emotional. And so to me, I love that this information is getting out to people, and for people to be just conscious that is a lot of the information there's so much propaganda. We've been bombarded with propaganda for the past 70 years, that most of the fears that people have around even exploring this is coming from a wrong supposition. People treat it like a drug because they were told it's a drug, and this is a plant. And after growing hundreds, if not thousands of pounds, and spending time, I love growing. I'm working on a book right now called Zen and the Art of Cannabis Cultivation.
Awesome.
It is about the mindful relationship, the spirituality behind the plant. So while mine's not so much medical, it's spirit. Its impact in my life has been one of spiritual and emotional healing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. Yes, Beth, go ahead.
One more question. You mentioned vaping, and so there's great controversy about, how dangerous vaping is. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so this should not be confused with what you are exposed to in terms of the vaping crisis with youngsters. This is just a form of what's called being able to take the herb and just heat it up to just the point where it releases the cannabinoids. You're not smoking anything. There's no smoking involved. It's not like a joint or just smoking the bud, which there would be issues if a person's lungs weren't healthy, that it could become problematic. So so anyway, it's not the same thing. When you hear about vaping, they're purchasing a vial that they connect up to their battery operated device, and they're vaping what's in that vial, which is nicotine, and sometimes it's laced with cannabinoids or whatever. This is not that. Although you can purchase distillates of THC and CBD that can be vaped in the very same devices, that's not what I'm talking about either. I'm talking about actually taking the bud and grinding it up. Instead of rolling it in a joint and smoking it, you're just going to put it in the little chamber there and put the top on and heat it up. And when it gets up to, for me, 400 degrees, and I smell it's heating, then I'll take a hit or two, and that's all it is.
Great, thank you.
Not the same.
Oh, and now is there, so if I were to search for your kind of vape, what words would I use?
Okay, this one, it's AU.
All right, so the isolate, could you go over that a little bit? You kind of went through that pretty fast. Could you just kind of reiterate that a little bit?
Okay, sure. So I just recently discovered that I could buy, this is a little package of these crystals. You can't really tell. And it says on here, it says 98% CBD, but when you look on the back side, it really says CBD Isolate. Okay, so this is not activated. And so that means when you ingest this, you're getting 98% pure CBDA. And it's 1 gram worth. And so 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. Okay, and then that's in addition to this product, which is, I don't know if you can see it, but it says THC on it. Anyway, it's 98%, 93% THCA. If you were to smoke this, you'd get high, but because you're going to ingest this, it's just the crystals. So I take 2 grams and I put it into this mortar and pestle, and I grind it up really, really fine, and then I get out 32 capsules, gelatin capsules, and the stuff will be in this little thing here, and it'll be all ground up. And I'll just take the little capsule and just get a little bit in it, and I'll put it on my scale, and I'll weigh 60 milligrams. And then I'll finish that capsule. If there's a little more, a little less, so what? But the point is that if I can get a pretty precise, consistent dose of 60 milligrams each, then I have all that I need for the 30 milligrams of the acid molecules per day. So this costs $75 at my pot store. And so $75 creates 32 capsules. Okay, so that gives you a sense of what the cost is. So that would last a month, or it lasts Jane and me 2 weeks.
Okay. So at that away, you would just take 1 capsule of that a day to get to the 30.
However, you won't want to put the capsules in a place where there's sunlight, because they'll get activated. You want to keep them in a cool, dry, dark place.
Gary, what was the ratio again that you're using in the capsules?
Okay, so so the capsules you want to contain equal parts, 1-to-1 part of the CBDA and the THCA. So if you have 1 gram of each of those products, and if each of those products have over 90% potency, then you're getting about a 1-to-1 of the crystals. And so you put those 2 crystals together. Now you have 2,000 milligrams. And so you can now make 64 capsules of 60 milligrams each. And that'll give us a month's supply for 2 people and 2 months supply for 1. I feel like this has been a good conversation. I've enjoyed being able to share. I think it's something that we should, or something that should be talked about in ministry, because we have so many people in our churches that are struggling, and the biggest fear that people have is they don't want to do pot because they're afraid to get high, or they're afraid of the stigma, as Alan has mentioned. And so much of this is really, that's not necessary to have to even go there, because there's so many new benefits now with a little bit of coaching and education. You'll find help. All right, my friends, if I'll email you all and take it from there, and maybe if energy is right, we'll do this again. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Gary.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.